Pastor Dave Grisham here for Official Street Preachers, and sorry I'm running a little late, but we had some technical issues in going live. I thought I was going to have to maybe record this and upload it, but not. So we're live. Hopefully it will stay that way, okay? Hopefully it will continue to be live. Anyway, sorry about missing last week's show. I was traveling and was in a position where I could not do the show. And sometimes when you travel, you're in areas where you don't get good phone reception, and so going live is not always a guarantee when you're doing it on your phone, okay? It's always not always a guarantee when you do it on a computer either. However, today's message is called When Sinners Go Crazy. Sinners are going crazy, folks. They really are going crazy. Sinners are just absolutely going crazy. They are, let me get this shifted over here a little bit. There we go. Sinners have gone completely nuts. Now, if you'll notice on the thumbnail on this video, it says, it's got a quote, and it says that where sanity is, there God is. And that's true. If you'll turn to your Bibles really quick to Romans chapter 1, I'd like to read something just really quick. Romans chapter 1. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, this is starting in verse 28, Romans chapter 1. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, the more the world goes towards not retaining God in their knowledge, the more they reject God from their knowledge, the more crazy they go, the more insane they go. Okay, and here it gives you a description of what that insanity looks like. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind. A debased mind is an insane mind. It's a crazy mind. It is. It's like a God of law and order is the God of law and order of the mind, the reasoning. See, atheists think that they're very reasonable. You know, oh, I believe in science. I believe in science. Well, how many genders are there? Well, that's different. That's different. See, they've gone insane too. Everybody's going insane except the people of God. That's the direction the world is going. If you want to stay on the sane side of the tracks, you've got to stay with God, okay? You've got to stay with Jesus Christ. To do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness. In other words, nothing is off limits. No sin is off limits, okay? Sexual immorality, that's the number one thing. Sexual immorality, filled with all unrighteousness. Then it makes a list of the unrighteous things they are filled with, okay? Sexual immorality, that means fornication, adultery, homosexuality, bestiality, whatever it is. Just, you know, they're having sex with dogs and cats and having sex with trees and holes in the ground or whatever they're doing, okay? It's all just disgusting. Wickedness, covetousness. When the world says by 2030 you'll own nothing and be happy, that means somebody up there is coveting, and higher up in here on earth is coveting everything in the world. They're coveting all your property, and if you're not going to own anything, somebody else is going to own it. Somebody's going to steal it from you. That's covetous. That's going to increase as the world gets more wicked. Maliciousness. Full of envy. Yeah, they're jealous. They're just like Cain was jealous of Abel, that he had God's favor and he murdered him. That's what's going to happen to us. Because right after it says full of envy, it says murder, because those two things are closely linked. Envy and murder. How many times have you heard these days where kids want the inheritance of their parents? They want their parents' money. They're envying it. They're coveting it, and they kill the parents, right? Like the Menendez brothers, but years ago in California. Remember that case? Strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. You know, if you got a dirty mind, you could probably use a little brainwashing from Jesus. I'm just saying. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God. Now, they always want to say, well, we just don't like hate. We just don't like hate. No, they hate God. They're filled with hate. The homosexual community is filled with hate because they hate God. They hate God's righteousness. They hate God's order for human sexuality, and they hate Christians that promote that. that promote the righteousness of God's sexuality. Violent, proud, because murder and violence, all that goes hand in hand, right? Yeah. Boasters, inventors of evil things. In other words, spend their time inventing and thinking up evil to do. Kind of reminds you of the book of Genesis when God flooded the world. It says the thoughts and intents of their minds are only on evil continuously. That's what's happening. That's a debased mind. Okay? Disobedient to parents. Oh, we see a lot of that. Kids, I've heard the language I've heard coming out of the mouths of children these days. My mother would have slapped me into a coma if I had said half the things these stupid kids say today. If your kid has a filthy mouth, it's because you're a filthy, disgusting parent. You are a sorry excuse for a parent. You are a derelict parent. Most parents these days are absolutely derelict. If your child starts back-talking you a lot, you got rebellion on your hands, that's on you because you're teaching them that. Okay? Undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death. So if you practice these things, you are deserving of death. Not just death in this world, but death in hell for all of eternity. Not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. So people get to the point in their depraved mind where not only is it okay for them to commit evil, it's okay for them to approve of others. And then they pressure other people to applaud it, to celebrate it, to participate in it. You see, let's just use the LGBT crowd, for example, because this is the most obvious. At first, they just wanted you to not beat them up. Just tolerate us, okay? Well, that's a laudable goal. I don't think people should go around beating anyone up. I don't think that's biblical, right? It started off on a good footing. Let's just don't beat up gay people, right? Well, I don't think you should physically harm anyone, even gay people. But then it went on to, well, it's an alternative lifestyle, as though it was just a different choice. It's just a different choice. It's all it is. It's not better than, worse than your choice. It's just a different choice. You see, it's not inferior. It's just different. And then it went to, well, now you need to approve it. And now you need to endorse it under the law by letting us get married. And now it's, you must celebrate it. You must use our pronouns. You must agree with us. Otherwise, you're a hateful bigot. So this is how the devil turns evil for good and good for evil, right? First, he puts evil on par with good, and then he lowers good and evil goes up. See? That's what's happening in our society. And it's not just with homosexuality. It's with fornication and adultery. It's with theft. The guy just testified at the Donald Trump trial. His former attorney, Cohen, that he stole tens of thousands of dollars from Trump. Why is he not on trial? Why is he not being charged with a crime? Nobody can even point to the crime that Donald Trump committed. And yet this guy admits on the stand that he committed a felony by stealing tens of thousands of dollars from Donald Trump, and he's not even charged. It's crazy. The world has gone crazy. You see, there's no justice in a crazy world. There is no justice, because justice is from a reasonable mind. That's where justice comes from. Justice means doing what is right, what is righteous. And that's not going to happen if you got people running around with debased minds. Their politics will be debased. Their behavior will be debased. Their sexual behavior will be debased. Their thinking, everything about them will be debased. Their parenting will be debased. Everything. That's what's going to happen. That's what we're heading into. Okay? So I want to start reading some stuff in the news today, and I want you to keep in mind, I want you to see the craziness in some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today. Okay? The insanity that these people, if you're reading about this, these people don't have God. Okay? All right. This is about disease X. Disease X. Oh, they really want another pandemic. They're trying to take over the medical community. They're trying to get a one-payer system. They want socialized medicine. And so they're going to use, by hook or by crook, they're going to try to get it. If they can't get it through legislation during normal times, they're going to try to create a pandemic and thus a panic and then they're going to be able to do a power grab and take control of the medical system. Why? Because they can pressure you. Oh, you had a heart attack. You want treatment? Well, you're a homophobic bigot. You're not going to get treatment. You're not going to take the mark of the beast. You don't get a hospital for you. Well, I don't care if your guts are hanging out after that accident. Just stuff them back inside, put duct tape on yourself because you're not getting any medical treatment. That's how things are going to go. The world is going to take care of its own, and it's going to first abandon, and then persecute Christians, okay? Disease X, scientists, leaders prepare for a possible virus far deadlier than COVID. Now they are talking about the bird flu, H5N1. They're talking about the bird flu. Now, if you'll notice, there's a series of articles on the news. I don't have one with me right now, but you can look this up. And they're also talking about more and more people are dying from the, I don't want to say it. Might get me banned on YouTube. But that little thing they do in your arm that I've been encouraging everybody to get? That. People are dying from it, okay? They're dropping dead all over the place. The death rates are going up and up and up. How do you camouflage that? How do you make it look like it's not that so that you won't automatically reject whatever vaccine you're going to come out with the bird flu, okay? Because trust me, if you don't trust that other one they did for COVID, if you don't trust that one, you're not going to take the one for the bird flu, right? You're going to be, whoa, wait a second, you killed all these people with the COVID one. You're not giving me anything for the bird flu. Not taking it. So in order to convince you to take it, they have to disguise the death rate as something else. So I think they're planning another pandemic, and this one's going to be far worse. And it's going to mask all the death rates. It's going to cover it. So they're going to say people are dying of the bird flu when in fact they're dying from the injection. Many of them will be. There may be some dying from the bird flu too. But they're going to use that to mask the death rate increasing because of the injection. It's camouflage. It's deception. It's a magician's trick. Look what I'm doing with the pretty flowers over in this hand. Meanwhile, I'm doing something else with my other. That's what's happening, folks. That's what they're doing. It's a mass deception. Mass deception. If they come out with a vaccine for the bird flu, I ain't taking it. No way. I don't care if they threaten me with anything. I'm not taking it. Not going to do it. I didn't take the one for COVID. Not taking that one for the bird flu. And if people are really dying in mass numbers, whether it's from the shot or whether it's from the bird flu itself, they're really going to pressure you into taking it. And they're going to be threatening people with jail time. And we may have COVID camps or whatever you want to call them, disease camps. Quarantine camps. Everybody's going to go off to quarantine. We're going to throw you in prison if you don't take this stuff. Fine, throw me in prison. I'll preach in prison. I believe in jail ministry, okay? Global health experts are sounding the alarm on the need to prepare for the hypothetical emergence of a deadly new pathogen dubbed Disease X. They've been talking about this over and over and over again. They're going to camouflage the death rate they've caused with the first one with another disease that they're going to put forth, okay? And then they're going to double down on the vaccines. Driving news: a panel of healthcare experts gathered Wednesday during the World Economic Forum's the World Economic Forum. They're talking about Disease X. Why is it every time somebody starts talking about something that's communist going on, wants to take away everybody's rights, you'll own nothing and be happy, except you'll die from the bird flu. And all that's happening at the World Economic Forum. Man, Lord, if you could just cause the ground to open up, just like you did in the Old Testament, and swallow a few people, maybe this stuff wouldn't happen. Just wishful thinking. 2024 annual meeting to discuss the prospects of Disease X, bringing renewed attention to the concept. Some experts believe a possible Disease X could be 20 times deadlier than COVID-19. How convenient, right? Going to have to cover up the deaths from the in the arm. The World Health Organization first coined the term Disease X in 2018. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom, I can't even pronounce the last name, starts with a G, don't know what it says, told the Preparing for Disease X panel on Wednesday. According to the WHO, the term represents the knowledge that a serious international epidemic could be caused by a pathogen currently unknown to cause human disease. They're not finished cooking it yet. It's still in the oven. They're not done with it yet. It's still in the oven. They're still cooking it. They don't know what to call it yet. In 2022, WHO convened over 300 scientists to look into 25 virus families and bacteria and create a list of priority pathogens that should be further researched. The list included disease X to indicate an unknown pathogen that could cause a serious international epidemic. Disease X is a placeholder for unknown disease. Okay? So what they're doing is the World Health Organization is trying to come up with a treaty that's going to take away all your rights, that if you get this disease or this disease breaks out, they're just going to impose martial law or whatever, and you're going to have to do exactly what the government says, exactly when the government says to do it. All your freedoms are going to be gone. We got to suspend your freedoms because we got to save the world. There's always people willing to trade, always willing to try to offer you a trade of your safety or security for the sake of your freedoms. Trust me, your freedom is more precious than that. People have died on the battlefield to preserve your freedoms. You're going to just throw it away because somebody gets sick? Anyway. All right. Here's an interesting story. Biden administration Denali National Park official demands construction crews stop flying American flags during bridge construction. That's right. Some people got really mad. I think this was the woman right here. I think that's the culprit. All right. It says, a construction crew working on a bridge in Denali National Park, Alaska, was allegedly ordered to stop flying American flags from their trucks and equipment. Sounds un-American, doesn't it? Granite Construction, which was hired as part of a $207 million Federal Highway Administration project to build a bridge after a portion of the road was destroyed by a rock slide in 2021. I've been to Denali several times. You can't take the bus all the way down to Denali, all the way down to the mountain now because this bridge is out. So they're going to try to fix this bridge so they can get people that can go all the way down there on the buses now. Because you can only actually drive to the Savage River inside Denali. It's 12 miles in, and then you have to park and stop. Only buses are allowed past that. But they only go to a certain distance now because this bridge is out, and they can't go all the way to the mountain like they used to. And by golly, the government's losing money because they got a really nice resort at the end of that road that people pay hundreds of dollars every night to be able to stay in a hotel and drink their little sips of wine while sitting on the back patio overlooking the mountain of Denali right in their little backyard there. So trust me, this is about money. Received the directive to remove the flags. They were flying from 2 trucks and a piece of heavy equipment from the Denali National Park Superintendent Brooke Merrill. That's what I'm thinking. I think this is Brooke Merrill right here. I think it is. I think that's her. If not, I apologize to the woman in that picture, but I think that's her. According to a contractor who spoke to Alaska Watchman, Merrill informed the crew leader that complaints had been received about the flags. You know, a lot of foreigners, especially from China and places like that, they come to Denali and they take vacations there, and they get on Denali on the buses, and they go inside and they look at the animals and take pictures and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And they just do this all the time. So it would be natural that they would be offended, like Chinese nationals might be offended over the American flag. Well, if you don't like the American flag, keep your butt in China. We don't need you here. Stay home. Don't come here. You just rent a video and watch it on video if you want to. But don't be complaining about our flags, okay? We're going to fly the flags. You don't like it? Tough. And that they're displayed detracted from the park experience. Park experience. You guys want to hear a true story about a park experience? Okay. I used to work for ConocoPhillips at their downtown headquarters in Anchorage, Alaska. One of my supervisors told me about a trip they went on to Denali, okay? And there was an incident. I guess you could call it. It's pretty funny, actually. Reminds me of a scene out of a movie. Maybe they could take this story and turn it into a scene in a movie. It'd be great. Anyway, so he gets on this bus to go inside Denali like any other tourist, even the Alaska natives, even people that live there got to get on the bus if you want to go inside. Now, you can get off the bus and hike around, and you can get back on another bus and come back in. You can hop off these buses and move around, but you've got to take the buses in and out. No private vehicles, okay? Government vehicles only. So he gets on and he's behind the driver, and they're going in, and there's this other bus coming back, and the windows are all down, and there's blood all over the side of the bus. And the bus driver that he's sitting behind goes, wow, they're coming back early. Something bad must have happened. So after they had their little trip, their 6 or 7 or 8 hour trip or whatever it was, because you buy a trip based on how many stops they make on the bus and, you know, how far it goes down in there. In any case, he said he gets back to the park headquarters where all the buses leave, the bus depot, and he was talking to a lady who was on that bus because they were waiting for their bus, another bus to come in so they could take it because their bus was messed up and they would have to clean it out. Here's what happened. So they're on the bus, they're going down the road. It was like a dirt road, and they see this big mama moose and a baby moose right on the side of the road. So, of course, the bus driver stops, says, oh, look at the mama with the baby, and all the windows come down and the cameras come out. And they're all taking pictures, right? Like that. Well, here comes along Mother Nature. Throws them a curveball. So out of the bush comes this gigantic grizzly bear, like weighed 1,000 pounds, and it comes barreling right towards the baby and her mama, okay? Now, because the bus was there and they were standing next to the bus with all the tourists, the mama didn't know which way to run, whether she should go around the bus to the front or to the back. She was momentarily confused, and in that moment of confusion, she delayed just long enough for that bear to tackle her baby and grab it right around the throat. And the mother ran off, and the grizzly bear proceeded to murder, if you will, this baby moose right in front of all the tourists. It was growling and snarling. They said you could hear the bones cracking in its neck. Blood spewed out of its neck, and it sprayed the bus with blood. And the bear was shaking the poor baby moose like a rag doll, you know, like a dog shakes a sock. And it was screaming, brrr, and it was making all this horrible noise, and everybody was freaking out and getting upset on the bus. And then this happened. Then the smell of that blood came in through those open windows, and about 2 or 3 people lost their lunch. And when 2 or 3 people lost their lunch, the other 40 or 50 in there started losing theirs, and it turned into a barfarama. People throwing up all over each other, all over the seats, all over the floor, and the more people that threw up, the worse it got, okay? The worse it got, and they had to turn around. They had to roll down all the windows and turn around because the bus was filled with puke, covered in blood, and everybody was traumatized. All the children were screaming. And that's the park experience, folks. It's a wilderness area. That's the park experience. Trust me, if it's okay for that to happen in front of tourists, I think the tourists will get over seeing a couple of American flags. What do you think? You think? I think so. I think so. They're saying it isn't conducive and it doesn't fit the park experience. Horse hockey. Yes, it does. The contractor explained that 2 trucks and 1 piece of equipment had been flying the flag since work began in 2023. He also pointed out that there was no issues with the flag until tour buses began operating nearby. That's what I'm saying. I think there's probably some foreigners on that bus that took offense to the American flag. Well, they can just take their little foreign butts home if they don't like it. Merrill, who moved to Alaska in 2009, has a background in transportation planning and environmental coordination, previously worked for the city of Portland, and has worked with left-wing environmental and social justice groups per the Alaska Watchman. The non-contractor pointed to Merrill's past employment blaming the liberalism for the order to remove the American flag. Yep, I'll bet that's exactly where that came from. A couple of Chinese people complained about it. They said, oh, we love communism. You communists are great. We'll get those American flags removed immediately. Why don't you just move troops into Denali and just roll tanks through here and it'll all be good. Get rid of the rest of the Americans. Ridiculous. See, people are going crazy. They're going crazy because they don't have God in their hearts. As we approach everybody having a debased mind, you're going to see this get worse and worse and worse. And I'm going to tell you about it every week. I'm going to tell you what's happening in America every week, and that we need to be preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. We need to be people getting saved, because everybody that gets saved, they're not conformed to this world, but they're transformed by the renewing of their mind. Renewing of their mind. This woman from Portland, she needs the renewing of her mind. That's what she needs. All right, here's an interesting little story. Now this is going to be really, really bad. Now the other one was kind of humorous, but this is not funny. Okay, this is not funny at all. Department of Homeland Security admits the border has been open to criminals and terrorists. DHS Chief Alejandro Mayorkas admits that its southern border policy allowed criminals and terrorists to enter as background checks were delayed until asylum hearings. Do you hear that? They weren't doing any background checks on anybody they caught. They were going to say, well, here's your court time to show up. Just show up on your own accord. It's the honor system. We know you're okay. Not a problem here. Nothing to see here, folks. Just come on into America and stay here for 2 or 3 years. And in 2 or 3 years, then we'll run a background check on you afterwards. If you're not in prison for blowing stuff up because you're a terrorist. A new regulation aims to expedite deportations to address this security risk. 3 years. 3 years Biden has been in office, and they've been doing this, and they're just now addressing this. Just now. You think maybe that those insane policies are because there's some debased minds in the White House? You think so? I believe so. I think there's a man with a debased mind as president of the United States. I do. I think that there are some other people in the White House with debased minds, and there's a lot of them in Congress too. All right. Surprisingly, the Biden administration's experiment with a somewhat open somewhat open? No, it's wide open. Southern border has resulted in an estimated 10 million individuals crossing in just over 3 years. How many of those are terrorists? You know, I honestly don't care about Mexican people coming across the border that are just law-abiding citizens that are just looking for a job. You know, that doesn't bother me so much. What bothers me is the human traffickers, the drug dealers, the criminals looking to escape justice over there, and the terrorists. That's what bothers me, okay? Those dangerous individuals are a far greater threat to us than some family who just wants to get a job, okay? Although that's still lawlessness, and I don't approve of it. So I'm not saying I approve of people breaking the law coming across the border. I'm just saying that they're much less of a security risk than terrorists, obviously. Okay, however, the most startling aspect of the border strategy might have just come to light. Recently, a new rule was introduced by Alejandro Mayorkas, the impeached chief of the Department of Homeland Security. DHS inadvertently disclosed that it had not been doing background checks on these millions of they're not undocumented immigrants. They're illegal aliens. You know, that is actually still a legal term according to U.S. federal law. When you hear somebody using undocumented immigrants, they're trying to soften the language so it doesn't sound like a bunch of lawlessness, okay? They're trying to minimize everything. They're trying to minimize the evil. To change the definition by changing the wording. This really is a battle of the word, okay? It really is. It's a spiritual battle. And changing the wording is part of that spiritual battle. When you see them changing the words, you know the devil has got his hand in that, okay? The devil has his hand. The official terminology, according to U.S. federal law, in federal documentation, is illegal aliens. That's the way they should always be referred to. Okay? Illegal aliens, not undocumented immigrants, to deport those with criminal records or ties to terrorism right away in a statement announcing the regulation. As an alternative, they have been delaying that decision until the asylum hearing, which takes place years later, if at all, if they even show up. Most of them don't, only like 30% of them even show up for the hearings. They continue to be in the U.S. awaiting the hearing. Doing what? Who knows? First of all, it should be acknowledged that the entire foundation for allowing millions of undocumented immigrants, illegal aliens, to enter the country is fanciful. People can cross our roughly 2,000-mile southern border almost anywhere they choose. Yeah, that's why Donald Trump wanted to build a wall. See my shirt? Heaven has walls and hell has open borders. That's right. Heaven has walls and strict immigration policies, and hell has open borders. Okay? There are gates in heaven because there's walls that go along with those gates. You don't just get in there. There's no undocumented immigrants getting into heaven. Okay? There's no illegal aliens getting into heaven. No. They have strict immigration policies, and you got to get there by the blood of Jesus Christ. Okay, first of all, it should be acknowledged that the entire foundation for allowing undocumented immigrants to the country is fanciful. People can cross our roughly 2,000-mile border almost anywhere they choose. Usually, they are not obliged to enter via a designated entry point. At your convenience, or more precisely, the drug cartel's discretion, cross the desert, the mountains, or the river, no issue. We'll send Border Patrol to you where they'll gladly process you and grant you admission right away. That's why they're having a flood down at the border, because they're not enforcing the law. Joe Biden is a lawless infidel. He is absolutely lawless. Okay? Since they are now being handled as refugees seeking asylum rather than as illegal aliens as they were previously, they are processed and granted entry. That is the open border experiment's hook and secret to establish that the applicant is a refugee. No, they're not. They're not all refugees. A very small portion of them might be, but there's a process to allow those in. The applicant must establish that race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion was or will be at least one central reason for persecuting the applicant. According to Title 8, Section 1158B of U.S. immigration law. However, the great majority of these newcomers are not doing so to avoid persecution. Their poverty has never qualified them for refuge, but that is why they are traveling. Where are the stories of millions of Central and South Americans facing racial persecution if they're fleeing persecution? Where are the stories of millions of people facing discrimination due to their faith? Well, that's happening here in America. So, years later, when they get their hearing, a great majority of illegal immigrants will not be granted asylum because they do not meet the requirements. However, we now know that DHS permits known dangerous immigrants to stay in the nation for years, even when they are aware they are ineligible for asylum. We are aware that happens only years later. The proposed regulation would allow asylum officers to take into account these barriers to asylum and denial of removal during the first credible fear screening, which takes place a few days after an individual is encountered, according to the statement. As stated in the release, this will better safeguard the security of our border and our country. The damage has already been done. Okay? It is now only after more than 3 years of admitting millions of undocumented immigrants that the Department of Homeland Security has concluded that perhaps it'd be wiser to deport people with violent criminal records and connections to terrorism right away rather than waiting years for an asylum hearing. Duh. See, people have lost their minds. Now, I don't think this is an accident. This is willful and deliberate. That's what this is. This is a deliberate undermining of our nation, is what it is. It's a deliberate undermining of our culture, our way of life, and our system of government and our system of economics. That's what this is. They are attempting, this is the coup. January 6th was not the insurrection. The border, that's part of the insurrection, okay? That's an invading army down there. That is an invasion coming in through the southern border. The policy hasn't been altered as of yet. To think they want to transform this into an administrative regulation and give the public a chance to comment on it. So they're going to go through we're going to change this policy and give you guys 120 days or whatever. So right up until the election, they'll change the policy right as Biden leaves office, and Donald Trump will have to change the policy back. So it'll be in effect for the whole 4 years that idiot is in office. Good grief. Why can't President Biden issue a new order quickly altering this policy? Well, he tries to do that with guns, doesn't he? He tries to alter the policies on guns immediately. He tries to grant immediate relief for people's student loans. We could just sign an executive order and people don't owe any money anymore. That's not a problem. We can do that immediately. But closing the borders to terrorists and criminals, that's going to take some time. We got to take our time doing this. You see, these people are sinners. They've got a debased mind and they're insane. They're crazy. They have lost their minds. Because they become evil, they've lost their minds. The only thing more dangerous than a crazy person is an evil person who has lost their mind, okay? According to the statement, non-citizens who present a national security or public safety risk remain in DHS custody while their cases are referred for full immigration hearings before an immigration judge, a process that could take years and is resource intensive. Yeah, they're just spending more money, bankrupting us all the way. Oh, gosh. Seems crazy. Now, let's prove that this is having a detrimental effect. Let's prove that there are terrorists coming across the border. This is an article from Zero Hedge by Tyler Durden. U.S. Special Forces operator kills undocumented Chechen outside of home in a possible spy incident. 2 Chechens with no personal identification. Now, a Chechen, in case you don't know about these people are from southern Russia. Okay? Back in the old days, they would have called them Scythians. Okay? You know the Great Wall of China? We call it the Great Wall of China. When China built that wall, they didn't call it that. They called it the Wall of Magog because they were trying to keep the Scythian invaders out of China. That's what they were trying to do. To slow that, they protected their borders. They weren't stupid, right? They put up a wall to protect their borders. Like, walls don't work. Gee, talk to the Chinese about that because it did work. In any case, they put up this wall to keep these Scythians out. These Chechens are descendants of the Scythians in southern Russia. And Russia's been having problems with these people all along. A lot of these Chechens are Muslims. They're radical Muslims, and they're terrorists. A lot of them are. 2 Chechens with no personal identification and who were in no U.S. national databases, otherwise illegal aliens that likely invaded the nation through the southern border, were taking photos or possibly surveilling outside the home of an elite U.S. Army Special Forces colonel near Fort Liberty, formerly called Fort Bragg in North Carolina. So a Special Forces colonel had these 2 yahoos outside of his house. Now, I don't mean in the street, parked on a public street, outside of a suburban home. No, his house sits back from the road. They were 250 feet off of the road on his personal land. Okay, so he went out and confronted them because they were on his property, taking photographs of his children. Fox News reports the colonel confronted the man, one of which was using a telephoto lens and taking photos of his children outside his home on the evening of May the 3rd. And that's the moment when an altercation broke out with the Special Forces operator shooting and killing one of the Chechens, because that's what these guys are trained to do. Probably one right to the noggin. The FBI told Fox News, so the FBI is involved in this. The FBI is involved. So they think there's a link to terrorism here. The FBI would only be involved in this if they thought there was a link to foreign terrorism. So the FBI is involved because that statement, the FBI told Fox News, our law enforcement partners at the Moore County Sheriff's Office contacted the FBI after the shooting death in Carthage. A special agent met with investigators and provided a linguist to assist with a language barrier for interviews. They caught the other one. One's dead. He don't talk no more. The other one, they caught him. He was speaking a language they didn't understand. Local Sheriff Ronnie Fields said the caller indicated that an individual was observed taking photographs on the property and had become aggressive towards a resident outside of their home. The deceased was found approximately 250 feet, 250 yards. That's 750 feet. That's a quarter of a mile. Oh, well, no, I take that back. 400 yards is a quarter of a mile. It's about an eighth of a mile, close to a little over an eighth of a mile inside his property, okay, from the roadway along a power line on the residential property. Okay, over the years, special operations soldiers have seen an increase in strange interactions, that's quote unquote, and suspicious surveillance of them and their families. Doesn't surprise me, because our southern border is wide open. So they're going to go after the U.S. Special Forces. They're going to go after certain politicians. They're going to go after certain types of infrastructure. You're going to start seeing terrorist attacks inside the United States, much like you do in the Middle East and over in Europe. The next terrorist attack that takes place in the United States could be way, way worse than 9/11. Okay? Just be forewarned on that. You're going to see an increase in terrorist attacks in the United States. This is an indication that that's going to happen. These guys are doing surveillance, they're doing their research, then they're going to practice, and then they're going to strike. Okay? That's generally the way it goes. They get intel, they train according to their intelligence, they reaffirm the intelligence, and then they strike. That's generally what they do. According to Fox News, some say this is a part of foreign spy programs. The illegal alien who was killed, 35-year-old Ramzan Dayarev, it's a Russian name, was working as a subcontractor for Utilities One. But at the time of the incident, Dayarev was not in possession of any utility equipment, utility clothing, or identification. So he was on his off time. So he comes into the United States, gets a job, so he can have access running around these power lines, and things like that. He's getting himself familiar with the infrastructure. Don't be surprised if some transformer blows up somewhere, because the idiots like this working for the utility companies, they got terrorists working for the infrastructure. Guess what's going to happen? Okay? Don't be surprised. This incident is still a mystery. Intel sources explained to Fox that power company employment is often a cover for status action. It's a cover because they can familiarize themselves with they can move around, go to all different kinds of places, because as utility workers, they go everywhere. They go into neighborhoods, behind alleys, they can surveil, they can tap into phone lines from the power poles. They can do all kinds of things that they want to do to gather intelligence without attracting too much suspicion. It's a good cover. A utility worker, they're everywhere, okay? And they're necessary, and we don't bat an eye by seeing them. This incident is still a mystery. The biggest red flag is an illegal alien using a telephoto lens to snap photos outside the home of an elite special forces officer. Maybe if Joe Biden and the Democrats didn't flood the nation with 10 million illegals, incidents like this wouldn't happen. Exactly. That's the point. Okay. Now let's turn to the economic front. There is a perfect storm brewing in America. A perfect storm. This is the coming judgment of God, okay? We got warned with these eclipses. We've been warned through God's word. We've been warned, we've been warned, we've been warned, okay, by God. We have not stopped. Even though we got rid of Roe v. Wade, we still got states that are choosing to murder babies. We've got people that are still choosing to support homosexuality, the sin of Sodom. They got all these kinds of people that are still operating in these areas, and they're doing it, and they're just not stopping. Okay, they're just not stopping. So the judgment of God is still on its way and still coming. For the past 2 years, shippers have had enormous leverage in the freight market. Shippers means ships on the ocean. As excess capacity has kept rates under significant pressure, shippers who suffered under the weight of sizable market stress during COVID have inflicted shippers' revenge on motor carriers. That's the truckers. Okay? Something we warned was coming back in August of 2022. Truckload spot rates, when adjusted for inflation, have plummeted to lows not seen since 2009. The shipping rates are low because they're trying to artificially keep the economy going. In the early part of the Great Freight Recession, Contract rates stayed persistently high as shippers monitored the market and wondered if the market reset was a short-term development or something greater. In the first quarter of 2023, reassured that the Great Freight Recession was unlikely to end, quickly shippers started to insist on significant rate concessions from carriers. This process accelerated earlier this year. As a result, carrier profitability hit 14-year lows in the first quarter. So the shipping rates have been artificially low as far as the trucking rates. Okay, the trucking rates have been artificially low because the shippers have been trying to force the motor carriers to keep their rates low, because if people stop buying stuff, then the shippers are not going to be able to ship anything. So they're putting pressure on the carriers, okay, to keep their rates low so they don't have to suffer the consequences, okay? According to FreightWaves channel checks, shippers still insist on rate concessions from motor carriers. This may be ill-advised. On April 17th, FreightWaves reported that we were likely at the bottom of the market and the end to the worst freight markets in history may be closer than it appears. We believe that this analysis is still true and shippers, not carriers, bear the greater risk. In fact, if the economy continues to grow, freight market volumes will do so as well. While we are not expecting a massive surge in freight activity, we continue to monitor risks that could change this perspective. Like all commodity markets, rates become massively volatile when an unexpected, sudden demand shock occurs. For trucking markets, no event has more short-term impact on demand than a major hurricane hitting a large U.S. city. They're saying this is going to be one of the most active hurricane seasons on record. They're expecting multiple large hurricanes to hit the United States this year. Okay? As I said, this is the judgment of God. It's coming upon America. It's here. It's happening. And so if these hurricanes strike areas, then your carrier rates are just going to go up. And people are going to stop ordering things because the price of shipping gets too high. The whole economy takes a nosedive. Okay? FreightWaves' early success was largely due to its coverage of Hurricane Harvey, which devastated Galveston and parts of the Texas Gulf Coast around Houston. NOAA released its May hurricane forecast, where it spells a warning to shippers to prepare for significant disruptions. You see, the thing about a hurricane is it disrupts the shipping coming into the ports, and that disrupts the carriers bringing things in. So it disrupts everything. It disrupts the ships and the carriers, everything. Okay? NOAA forecasts that there will be 17 to 25 named storms, with 4 to 7 being Category 3 or greater. On average, a hurricane season usually has 14 named storms and 3 Category 3 or greater storms. So you're looking at the potential for twice as many storms this year. That's going to have us, if that happens, if we get a bunch and it hits major cities, hits major ports like Houston, like Charleston, South Carolina, places like that, like Miami, Florida, if it hits major ports, Norfolk, Virginia, if it hits places like that and causes disruptions to the ports, or even Baltimore, they're struggling right now because that bridge is down. And now they might get a hurricane. Who knows? One could go up. I mean, Hurricane Sandy went that far north. So don't be surprised if Baltimore would maybe get hit by a hurricane. Who knows? I'm just saying that if this happens, understand this is the judgment of God, and God is judging our economy because we are profiting off of sin. Okay? God is going to take away our prosperity and our freedoms if we don't repent and turn back to Jesus Christ. If we don't turn back to the foundational principles that our country was founded upon, God will bring this country down. And this may be part of what's going to happen. So it isn't just people that are going crazy. It's the weather too. Okay? The weather's going crazy. This is all because of sin. The administration described the 2024 season as hyperactive and the highest NOAA has ever issued in the May forecast. This is the highest alert they've ever issued in the May forecast, ever. So we'll see if it comes to pass. Shippers that assume they'll be able to react to changing market conditions in time may find that carriers lack sympathy for their plight. In fact, carriers have been warning shippers that forcing significant race concessions will be a mistake when the market flips in the carrier's favor. Whether the hurricane season lives up to NOAA's forecast or ends on a whimper, one thing is certain. At some point, the freight market pendulum will swing against shippers, and when it does, trucking firms will inflict carrier revenge. In many ways, carrier's revenge is more vicious than shipper's revenge in the sense that price is easier for shippers to deal with than having freight left on the docks and factories disrupted. So, just to let you know that a hurricane or major hurricanes hitting ports could have a significant impact on inflation, which is going to have a significant impact on you. If you're not stocking up on stuff that you need, not just garbage. Don't go out and buy Nintendos. Don't go out and buy PlayStation 5s or whatever they're selling now. I don't even know. Don't go out and buy extravagant video games and all this garbage. Stop buying the junk and start buying the things you need, okay? Because you remember what happened during the pandemic when people were fist fighting over toilet paper? Trust me, it could happen again. What if we get a bird flu at the same time we get hurricanes and maybe a major earthquake? Whoa, wouldn't that turn things upside down, right? Who knows? Things are already getting bad in the economy. As per this article right here, America in 2024, fast food is a luxury. I remember when I was a kid, back in the 60s and 70s, we were very poor, and if my mom could afford once a month or once every couple of weeks to take us out to a fast food place like McDonald's or a Taco Bell or something like that, we just thought we were living high on the hog. Man, we were going out to eat. It was just great. We never went to an expensive sit-down restaurant. We couldn't afford that stuff. Fast food was a luxury. I think it's going to go back to that. That's what this article's saying. Little by little, our standard of living has been eroding. A couple decades ago, we had the largest and most prosperous middle class in the history of the world, but now most of the country is struggling. At this point, fast food is considered to be a luxury. 11 million children are living in poverty, and thousands of stores are permanently shutting down all over the United States because consumers have so little discretionary income these days. And if those disasters hit, if we get more tornadoes, we get more wildfires, we get more hurricanes, their discretionary spending is going to be even less. Okay, because people are suffering from natural disasters. At the same time, they're suffering from hyperinflation. That's a 1-2 punch the economy probably cannot handle. The markets will crash, the dollar will collapse, and then the great reset that they've been planning on will happen. Okay? We are in the midst of a historic cost of living crisis, and those at the bottom of the economic food chain are being hit the hardest. The ultra-wealthy don't really care that food costs have been soaring, but for those that are barely scraping by from month to month, it makes an enormous difference. Yes, it does. Once upon a time, fast food restaurants were where those that were struggling went to eat. That was like us when we were kids. But now fast food is considered to be a luxury in 2024, and that is because fast food prices have gone absolutely haywire. A Big Mac sandwich at McDonald's, for example, cost $3.99 in 2019. When I was a kid, you get a Big Mac for like $1. Okay, you get it for like $1 or less, 75 cents. They used to run hamburgers on sale for 10 cents a piece. Those little standard hamburgers they have that almost nobody buys anymore except for the kids. They go in Happy Meals. They used to sell those for $0.10 a piece. People get load up on those things. Now that price has more than doubled to $8.29 according to fast food menu prices and online tracker. Gone too are the days of $5 footlong at Subway. A BLT footlong that cost $5.50 in 2019 now costs customers $8.49 in 2024, though prices can vary by location. Additionally, Chipotle's beloved chicken burrito that cost $6.50 in 2019 now runs customers $10.70. Fast food executives have pointed to rising wages and increased costs for ingredients as factors driving up the prices on their menus. I'm sitting here looking at these numbers, still can't wrap my head around them. I never imagined that I would see the day when it took more than $8 to buy a Big Mac. That is insane. The economy has gone insane. The whole world has gone insane. Sinners have gone insane. We're going to show you some more insane stuff here in just a minute. A different survey that was recently conducted by Lending Tree discovered that almost 80% of all Americans believe that fast food is a luxury item now. 80% of Americans believe that. That is telling you something important right there. Nearly 80% of Americans now consider fast food luxury items as families feel the squeeze in the Biden's regime's failing economy. According to a survey from Lending Tree of around 2,000 adults, what was once considered an affordable option for low-income workers is fast becoming the opposite. The only way some of these people might eat is to go to work at McDonald's and get free food. Meanwhile, the number, if they even do that anymore, I don't know if they do. Meanwhile, the number of American children living in poverty continues to increase with each passing day. If you can believe it, we are being told that over 11 million U.S. children now living in poverty. More than, well, gee, and we just opened the borders? We got 11 million of our own children living in poverty, and we want the southern border open to allow more poor children to come in here and poor families to come in here? Really? This is the recipe? This is the recipe for breaking our economy is what this is. And that's being done deliberately, folks. This is not an accident. What's going on here is a revolution in our country. It's a soft coup is what's happening. Pray that it doesn't go hot. Yeah, I remember it was $8 for two people at the cheapest. Yeah. More. That equates to around 1 in 7 children in the U.S. or 15.3%. It's a high toll and one even higher than the adult population, which was 10.5% for 19 to 64-year-olds that year and 10.3% for adults age 65 plus. According to an analysis by Peter G. Peterson Foundation, this difference is due to factors such as the cost of caregiving and its responsibilities, transitions to a single-parent household, and that's caused by sin. Single-parent households are caused by sin. Anytime somebody gets divorced, it's because one or both married partners are in sin. That's why. God hates divorce, and divorce is driving this. Fornication is driving the divorce rate. Adultery is driving the divorce rate also. Sexual sin is driving the divorce rate. And fornication is driving up single-parent households because people are not wanting to get married anymore. They just want to knock somebody up and walk away. All of that is having a toll. It's taking its toll on America. Single-parent households, unemployment of parents, and disabilities of family members. Today, approximately 40% of the entire country is considered to either be living in poverty or among the ranks of the working poor, and 42 million Americans are on food stamps. We now have an absolutely gigantic underclass that is largely made up of people that were once solidly middle class. You know what happens when you get a huge level of underclass, of underclass people like that? You know what happens down the road? Revolution, violence, rioting in the streets, burning down things, raiding rich people's homes, overturning the king, all that kind of stuff. Pitchforks and torches, or in America's case, guns and ammo. So I'm just saying, we're being set up for this. We're being set up for something. The rapidly rising cost of living is just shredding families from coast to coast. In Montana, one senior is incredibly frustrated because his property taxes have increased by 790% over the past several years. Property taxes are going up because these disasters, insurance rates are going up, and because of the rioting and people, in 2020, people were burning whole blocks. You think the insurance rates didn't go up when people collected on their insurance? Of course they did. This man says, I'm on Social Security. I'm 68 years old and working just to pay my taxes, says Kurt in a clip shared on TikTok by Ryan Busey, who is running to be the next governor of Montana. Kurt claims that over the last couple of years, his annual property taxes have soared from $895 to almost $8,000. Remember, folks, by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. They're going to raise your insurance rates so high, they're going to raise your taxes so high, and they're going to reduce your employment opportunities. They're going to make cost of food so much. Remember, the Bible says that in the days of Revelation, that it's going to cost an entire day's wage just to eat a loaf of bread, just to buy a loaf of bread. How are you going to afford to put a roof over your head for that? You can't afford electricity if it's things like that. You'd be living under a bridge if that happens if you're lucky to find a bridge, because there'll be a lot of other people living under that bridge. It'll be real crowded. His property taxes have skyrocketed because property values have skyrocketed. The value of property is being artificially pumped up. Artificially pumped up. Okay? It is. Just like gold prices and silver prices are being artificially lowered. Just like the price at the gas pump right now is being artificially lowered because it's an election year. Okay? And they don't want high gas prices because the first thing people see without inflation is food and gas prices. Well, they can't do much about the food prices, but they can do a lot about the gas prices. Biden is dumping oil out of our national oil reserves and lowering the gas prices artificially. That's going to come back to bite us in the rear end when we go to war with China and we got no fuel for a lot of our ships. We got no fuel for our military, our aircraft and stuff like that. And property values have skyrocketed because our leaders flooded the system with way too much money. Small businesses are being monkey hammered by inflation as well. In fact, one recent survey found that 86% of all U.S. small businesses say they're being hurt by inflation. I got a friend of mine that says that he had a dream some years ago, and he dreamed that he drove through Amarillo, because that's where he lives, and he was driving down Interstate 40, and as far as the eye could see, he could see closed businesses. He said that dream partially came to fulfillment during COVID because he saw tons of businesses closed for a while. Now, here's another insane thing. Here's got two more articles and then we'll be done with today's show. But this is more insanity. Transgender teen attempted to perform a double mastectomy on herself after watching a YouTube video. Is that insane or what? Okay. Somebody on there says they keep having dreams about tsunamis. Well, there is a tsunami coming. It could be political, social, cultural, economic, and water all at the same time. It could be all of those things. A transgender teenager, first of all, there's no such thing as transgenders. You're born male, you're born female. That's all there is. Transgenderism does not exist. It's a lie. It's a social construct. It's a liberal, leftist social construct. A transgender teenager in New Zealand has been hospitalized after attempting to perform a double mastectomy on herself after watching a YouTube video. The biological female teenager has been identified publicly only as 18-year-old patient Z. Well, maybe that's her pronoun? I don't know. A study on the incident was recently published in the New Zealand Medical Journal. According to a recent study published in the New Zealand Medical Journal, an 18-year-old biological female attempted to perform mastectomy on her left breast. The self-surgery was done due to significant psychological stress of having breasts at an upcoming pool party. She was just going to freak out if she had boobs at this pool party. Oh my goodness, that's what girls have. That's what God gave you. Enjoy it, okay? Be natural, be normal. You know, good grief. And this is all social pressure being put on people to be cool. It's now cool to be a transgender, right? It's cool to do that. No, it's not. It's going to be really hot in hell. That's not cool. Hell is not cool. According to the journal, the doctors in the study said the individual demonstrated premeditation. You think? She didn't fall and land on a pizza cutter and cut her boob off. Premeditated by watching a how-to video on YouTube, gathering the necessary equipment, making the incision, and considering pain management and bleeding control. It didn't work out. However, patient Z quickly suffered concerns about the self-attempted left mastectomy and sought medical attention several hours through the self-attempted left mastectomy due to concerns of damaging a nerve. People don't take that in consideration. They're medical experts for a reason. The study authors reported gender dysphoria causes a significant distress for transgender people. Gender dysphoria is probably a social construct. People didn't have gender dysphoria. It's ridiculous, okay? It is well documented that transgender people experience higher levels of discrimination, bullying, and violence compared to the general public from their own people. And they express violence. Transgender people express violence. They shoot up schools and stuff. So I don't want to be reading any of their propaganda for that. That's in any case, a crazy person being encouraged by a crazy society, did something crazy. Imagine that. All right. Male drag artist dances for kids at Vatican's World Children's Day. Another insane person doing something crazy with a crazy church. Salerno native Carmine De Rosa performed as one of the official artists for the inaugural World Children's Day. In his capacity as a quick change artist or a living cartoon, De Rosa appeared as a woman wearing multiple outfits in drag. And here is a picture of the crazy person right there. Okay? Not going to show you from the neck down because it might be inappropriate. Catholics have expressed horror after a male performance artist danced in drag for young children during Pope Francis's first World Children's Day this weekend. Pope Francis is responsible for this. You're a dope if you put your hope in the Pope, trust me. On May 25th, Salerno native Carmine De Rosa performed as one of the official artists for the inaugural World Children's Day. In his capacity as a quick change artist or a living cartoon, De Rosa appeared as a woman wearing multiple outfits in drag. He also used suggestive cardboard costumes. Suggestive might mean, appendages, things like that. If you know where I'm going. Children sat in a circle around De Rosa as he performed. This demonstration took place at Rome's Olympic Stadium, where later in the day, Pope Francis met with thousands of young children from across the world. Oh, gosh. Wearing a pink dress with a plunging neckline, De Rosa commented on the excitement he felt at being invited to take part in World Children's Day. Yeah, he's probably a pedophile. I bet he was really excited. I don't want to say how he was excited, but he probably was. Highlighting De Rosa's performance, former U.S. Papal Nuncio Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano attested that De Rosa's inclusion in the international event demonstrated Vatican's support for LGBT ideology. Are you hearing this, Catholics? Are you hearing this? You're either going to go with the Pope and go with the devil, or you're going to come to Jesus Christ and you're going to get out of that church and you're going to get right with God, okay? The Catholic Church has gone off the rails. It's going to the toilet. It's headed towards hell. Don't follow it, okay? Get out of it right now while the getting is good. It is now clear that Bergoglio is one of the main activists of the hellish LGBTQ plus agenda, the prelate wrote. Continuing, Vigano quoted the gospel, noting Christ's warning about causing scandal. There are no more words to express the scandal and disgust in the complicit and cowardly silence of the episcopate. Whoever scandalizes even one of these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for him if a millstone turned into a donkey's wheel and were hung around his neck and he were cast into the depth of the sea. Matthew 18:6. So the guy that did this deserves to have a millstone hung around his neck and thrown into the ocean. I'm not saying I'm going to do that. I'm saying God is going to do something worse. De Rosa has since defended his show. Writing on social media platform TikTok, he stated that bringing smiles to children and beyond was my task, and I succeeded. Oh, he made children happy in his wickedness. Is that really the gauge of righteousness? Is you make sinners happy? You make people happy? If they're happy in their sin, it's okay? I don't think so. LifeSite contacted the press office of the World Children's Day to inquire about De Rosa's official status at the event, but has yet to receive an answer. Yeah, they're probably trying to dance around that one right there. However, De Rosa himself stated that while he was officially invited by the Pope, the Catholic Church, the Vatican invited him. That means the Pope is responsible. The buck stops at the Pope. I would like to point out, reading the comments, that I was wanted at this event for the type of show I carry on stage. That's in bold letters. And for professionalism, I simply defend my art. That's not art. It's trash, okay? It's trash. De Rosa regularly performs for Italian network RAI. I don't know what that is. However, he also appears at a variety of events, including First Communion parties, where he dances suggestively and performs his trademark quick outfit change, nearly always wearing female costumes and red lipstick. Guy's a freak. The World's Children's Day event saw young children from around 100 countries gather in Rome. The two-day meeting with Pope Francis was held on Saturday, where Francis met with children in the Olympic Stadium, and then Sunday, when he presided over Trinity Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Square. What did they have there? A gay pride parade? I guess the Pope's going to march in the next homo parade in Rome. Who knows? Announced by Francis during the Angelus on December 8th last year, the special day continues a predominant current theme set by the pontiff, namely to be visibly involved in events involving children. The Catholic Church, where they touch your heart and probably your kids too. Prior to the weekend's events, Francis had been making a series of unannounced visits to parishes around Rome, where he meets with local children and conducts catechetical style encounters. And some drag queen encounters too. They'll pay papal attention to children at events, whether at weekly audiences, international trips, or on St. Peter's Square after Mass, is not uncommon by any means. Francis's pontificate in the last 7 months has seen a particular focus on events aimed at children. Anytime the LGBT gets involved, they want to go after the kids, because that's where they want to go, folks. They want to legalize sex with children. That's what their goal. Their next goal after gay marriage and getting transgenderism normalized is to get children to transgender, and also to get children where they can have consensual sex with adults. Then they're going to brainwash the little children and convince them they should have sex with adults, and it's horrible. It's horrible. We need Jesus to come back, like now. World Children's Day is now anticipated to be a regular event. We need some street preachers to show up to that. If you're a street preacher in Rome, or maybe if you're thinking about traveling to Rome, I have a passport. I'm not afraid to use it. I don't have much money to travel to Italy. But if this event goes on next year, the next occasion being in September of 2026. There you go. September of 2026. If we haven't blown ourselves off the face of the earth by then, if the Lord hasn't come back, maybe you should put that on your calendar for street preachers to show up in Rome and preach against this garbage. Because trust me, if they had one drag queen there this year, they'll have a whole covey of them that in 2026. The place will be filled with them, and they'll be doing horrible things. It does nothing but escalate. It is intended to form a corresponding forum to the World Youth Day, more perverts, which is held every few years for those aged between 16 and 35. So that's it, folks. That's the list of insane things the world is doing this week, or over the past couple of weeks. Be praying for America to repent and come back to Christ, folks. Read your Bible. Stay in the Word, stay on your knees, and keep your sanity by keeping in the Word of God, okay? Because the world is going insane. The world, I think, has already achieved that. The world is insane, and it's getting worse. It's not going to get better until the Lord returns and puts an end to all this trash. He did it once with a great flood. There's going to be a flood of saints coming back, and then God is going to judge the living and the dead. So God bless you all. You have a good week.